And then lastly, obviously, the Houston Texans. We touched on this the other day. Nico Collins going on IR officially. I think since the last time we covered this, he is on IR, will miss 4 games. And so obviously a bump up for Tank Dell, a bump up for Stephon Diggs in their roles. But there's also another receiver here that's been a pretty popular pickup this weekend, Xavier Hutchison, who's going to serve as the wide receiver 3, had a strong game last week. I thought John Mechie would get an opportunity as well, but it seems like Hutchison's the guy that's going to at least have an opportunity here. Do you think he's on the flex radar yet, or are you still leaving him on your bench?
I'd probably leave him on just because there's some pretty good, I don't want to say good running back flex plays, but there's decent running back flex plays that are interesting. So I would probably leave him on my bench. But yeah, he's a guy that if I had a roster spot, I don't mind picking him up just because it's a Houston Texans offense. We know that it's explosive with CJ Stroud under center. And Tank Dell, I had high hopes for him, but he hasn't been particularly great this year. I think he'll get better, but we'll see. And Hutchison, I want to say even out targeted him last week. So, or at least when he came in, he out targeted him. So, I think he's somebody I would pick up and just see how it plays out.
Maybe CJ Stroud just thinks he looks downfield and he's like, oh, that's Nico Collins down there. He's just targeting him the same way. Yeah. But like when you start thinking of like some of the similar type spots, I think there's a solid like 35 to 40 receivers. And then now Xavier Hutchison is like now in that range because you're talking about players who do have question marks, guys that were like considering starting. He's in that like, to me, he's right behind like your Keon Coleman's and your Dontavian Wicks and your Alec Pierce is like he offers a very similar amount of questions. But I do think the one thing I can say is like this matchup might be favorable depending on what the New England Patriots do with Christian Gonzalez. If they allow him to shadow either a Tank Dell or a Stephon Diggs, there might be some additional opportunity now for Hutchison. I don't want to overstate it and say that he's going to be like this 8-target guy, but I think that this is a player that I would want to at least have on the roster. I wouldn't want to leave him on free agency just to see what happens because we are without Nico for 4 weeks.
Yeah, at least. I mean, you think it's going to be 4? Hey, you never know.
I mean, he's IR. So you could be 6, 7, 8. So, and then lastly, the running back situation got a little bit more crowded. Obviously, we've been trusting Cam Akers for the last 2 weeks as like a mediocre flex play, RB3 type play, just because of pure volume. Like we talked about, the volume sometimes it speaks. But now we get the return of Dameon Pierce. He is healthy. Oh, and guess who else we get? We get Joe Mixon now back as well, who is expected to play this week. So this backfield, which was Joe Mixon's getting 30 carries a game, heavy workload. Then he gets injured after 2 games. Dameon Pierce, he's hurt. We don't know when he's going to come back. Oh, Cam Akers, he performed on the preseason. He still looks rusty. This is a complicated mess. I still think Joe Mixon is the lead back here, and they give him opportunities this game against New England. Do I think it's 25, 30 carries? Absolutely not. But getting 15 carries, 15 touches, I'll say, in this game seems likely. I still have him as a top 15 play. I am not interested at all. Cam Akers can go to waivers. Dameon Pierce is not worth the flex spot.
No, I agree. I would be playing Joe Mixon if I had him. And sure, if he doesn't see a big workload, I'm fine with that because I think that he'll see a decent enough workload that will warrant RB2 production. I think that honestly, and all the other guys, I don't want to roster any of them. The only other guy that I think would be that I would want to, I don't even think like Dameon Pierce is. Dare's the only one because I wouldn't even want to roster Dare, but Dare, I just think has the role of like a pass catching back. Like he's the only kind of guy. I don't think that Dameon Pierce would even play pass catching downs. I don't think he's like that kind of guy. So
they might use his ass on special teams.
It's honestly. So Dare's the only one that, if anything were to happen to Joe Mixon again, right? Like we saw it. I don't even want to pick up Dameon Pierce. I would rather have Dare just because I think that Dare, once again, the pass catching role, and they clearly like him in that role. So he's the only guy. But yeah, Joe Mixon, definitely play him this week if I had him.
I play him this week, and I treat him as a top 12. Like maybe you don't see the ceiling of like 30 carries, 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, but this is still a player who can score a touchdown. They'll use him in the red zone, and you're also going to get a couple opportunities at catches, probably a few targets this game as well with him in the passing game. So I think if you're questioning, like, do I start Joe Mixon? I don't think this is a player you question. I'm starting him over guys like Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift. I'm still trusting him as a top 12 asset.
He's right in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I got him ranked at number 11 right now.
So I have him 13.
13. So right around the same territory. Trust him in your lineups. Before we get into it, man, any other start sit things? Because I know we touched on this mentality wise. It's like, look, you can't always, you go through the week, you look at the matchups, you trust your judgment, and then 5 minutes beforehand, you either get a piece of information or an inkling. You're like, no, I'd rather start this player instead. How are you with that? Because to me, I'm like, you know what? Start your guys. You put trust in it all week. You've identified the matchups. Trust your gut.
So I used to go in and tinker like to the minute. And last week I did that. Just it was like the first time I did that in a long time, and it ended up burning me. Like as the years have progressed, I've just been kind of like I do my homework early. Sure, things can change because players get hurt, but I have my process throughout the week just leads me to who I want to be playing, and I don't usually go in there last minute and change it. So I will say one thing too. Hey, just real quick. Hey, Isaac Garendo, huh?
Yo, that intuition.
But I want to say this, right? And I think this is really important because I think it's leagues that don't lock, not all leagues lock their rosters for Thursday night players. So you can drop them after they played, but you
Yes.
can't add them.
Yep.
Not all leagues are like that. A lot of leagues also lock it, so you're locked in. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is, yeah, I had a little bit of intuition, and that we talked about intuition, right? It's just something like there's just something that you just feel it, and like with Isaac Lindo, yeah, and I didn't believe like Jordan Mason was actually going to get hurt, but he was leading the league in touches. They gave him a ton of work, and he could be back next week. And I don't even know if it'd be Isaac Reno because he just had one carry at the end of the game that really inflated his numbers. But the point of what I'm trying to say is, if you are in a league that you're able to drop players after Thursday night football, there's no reason to not be adding backup running backs that are playing on Thursday night football because of that reason. Like, it's just then you don't have to wait to try to get them on waivers. And then you're just able to drop them right after the game. Oh, the running back didn't get hurt. All right, tossed out, pick up a new guy. Like, that should be stuff that everybody should be doing, and they don't do. Like, even in my cutthroat leagues, people aren't even doing that kind of stuff. I do it all the time just because that, like, it's stuff that you should be doing that gives you a slight advantage. Not every single week you're going to hit on it, but you could. And it's just something that's easy to do and costs nothing to do.
You know, I've never thought of that. And I've been playing this game for a very long time. And I claim, you know what I'm saying? I have a lot of claims about how good I am as a player. I've never thought about that. That's a really good point because at the end of the day, it gives you upside, right? Like, especially if you have a starter that you're like, I don't even know if I really want to start this guy, or I don't know if I want to roster this guy. Now you have a free spot. If there's somebody you were thinking of picking up, chances are if they clear waivers, you're going to be able to get them anyway. So you pick up a Garendo and say he goes for 0 yards, you cut him for the player that you were gonna get anyway. That's a hell of a point, man, because I typically do that with like my Monday night guys. I wait all the way till Monday, and then people who are on bye weeks, they don't lock until the Monday game starts. Mm-hmm. So I normally identify a couple key pieces that I like, that players that are on bye, like say Raheem Mostert got dropped. I'm thinking in my head, okay, I know if anybody on this team that I picked up and they're not like a player that I was invested in, or like if they have a bad game, I would drop them. I know I have a player ready to go, whether it's a player or a defense, even for the next week. So say I really liked a defense for the next week. I use my Monday night, but I've never thought of the Thursday night, bro. That's a gem right there, dog.
Yeah. I do it. I don't want to say I do it every single time because there's some weeks that's just like I don't care who the backup is, or people could already have the backup. So you're just kind of stuck and nobody pick up. But yeah, it's something where, especially for the 49ers, because you know how good this team is running the football, that I would be picking players up every single week. And you, like I said, once again, you can just drop them. And one thing I did too, and this is another point that I want to say, I had Mike Gesicki because I have Travis Kelce, so I had like Mike Gesicki's the best on waivers. I dropped Mike Gesicki because like even a defense, because that's not good, and maybe you picked up for the week you're trying to stream, like drop them just for the extra spot, because if the starting running back goes down, that guy's way more valuable than your kicker or your defense, unless you have like Brandon Aubrey, then I don't know, maybe, but like I want to drop him. But if it's some kicker that's like kicking 12th right now. Like who the hell cares? You can have that running back who has way more value if the starter gets hurt. So
I use and this probably lead to a further conversation. I use my defense and kicker spots as weapons. Like I'll drop a defense and just play where most of the time your defense is going to get you between 5 and 8 points. Like most standard defenses are 5 to 8 points. That's just how it works. And if I can drop that and pick up somebody who's in a very similar situation, a fantasy-friendly situation, maybe it's not the best defense, but in a 12-team leagues, there's not more than 20 defenses rostered. There's 12 defenses out there. You can find one that gets you 5 points that has some upside. Get rid of the defense. Pick up a player with the upside. I really like that strategy, Tyler. And like I said, that's one of those gems that that's one you had in your bag that not a lot of people will remember. So good shit.
And what kind of pissed me off too, man? This is another thing, like just go with your gut, because I was going to make a video. I had Isaac Arendo and I was going to talk about this and I decided not to do it. And I was like, fuck it. I don't think it would get that many views or whatever. I guarantee that would have blown up just because of like after the fact, like it probably wouldn't have done that well at first, but then everybody would have been like, oh shit, he's right. It actually happened. He got hurt. So it kind of pisses me off that I didn't, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about so much though, like you can't do every take. But that was when you had a hunch about it. You talked about it, you mentioned it, you picked him up. So that was good shit, bro. I'm sure we'll have more. That was, to me, the player I did that with earlier was like Xavier Leggett. And it hasn't worked the same way, but I was like, after I saw the first game, I was like, oh shit.
I still think he has upside.
I think he's gonna be a second half guy.
Yeah, I still think he has that upside. He's banged up, right? He got hurt.
He got banged up this last week. He's going to play, though.
Yeah, he's going to play this week, yeah. So there's still a chance with him. I think he's somebody that should be rostered as well.
Yeah, we talking about. I mean, we gave love to Brian Thomas and Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors already. I don't know if Andy Dalton looks the way he has been. I could just see him being an asset for us down the second half.
Agreed.
All right. Well, good shit, man. We got some extra gems I wasn't expecting here. Tyler, appreciate you tapping in, man. We will be back here next week as always. We'll see you on the next one.